Joining us now, she's entering her 14th season at Florida State, fresh off another Women's College World Series appearance and a bronze medal, historic medalist for Team Canada. We'll talk about that. She's been one of the originals on this show, tradition, one of our good traditions. Of course, I speak of Lonni Alameda, joins us back here on In the Circle for our traditional get-together. Coach, how you doing?
Yeah, it's always nice to see your face on Zoom and hear your voice because it means season's right around the corner, but you also have such great passion for our game and really appreciate it. So
Yeah,
doing great. Thanks for having me.
it's always great to catch up with you. And I want to start with your offseason. It was different than usual in that you were part of the Team Canada staff with Mark Smith and Canada, that first ever medal for Canada softball. That's something they've been chasing for a long time, and you were a part of that. Just talk about that experience. This was your second Olympics with Team Canada. Take us through that experience and being able to accomplish that. I remember watching that bronze medal game and the emotion on everybody's face once they got the last out against Mexico, realizing you finally going to bring a medal home.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of emotion through the whole experience, and I think like we were talking about, I wasn't with the 4 years. Once the COVID postponed the games a year, Russell Cooper, the pitching coach for the program, just wasn't able to stay on another year away from his job. So I jumped in, last minute. I'm so thankful and grateful that I got to do that. But the girls, the program, the team have put a lot of work into that, years and years of work, of opportunity. And so, my job was to go in there and just kind of make it as seamless transition as possible. I had great relationships with the pitching staff already. And like you said, Mark Smith and the girls have been trained, here with Kaylee Rafter at times. And so I knew everybody pretty well. And so, so just go in there, try to be seamless as I can, just help them, achieve what they wanted to get. And the passion, there's a couple moments, right? There's some highs and lows, losing to the USA type game, losing to the Japan type game, like knowing you're not in the gold medal game, but you still have a chance to medal. The emotions of like, man, can we be, gold medal game, podium standing, we're still got a chance to be on the podium. Those emotions of that one game to the other. And so it was incredible. But the elation of medaling history, when they went out to get on the podium, putting the medals on each other. I don't know if anyone kind of noticed how the medal awarding went. Usually they have people put medals on your necks, but because of COVID, they did not have that. And so Canada decided to medal each other, and it was just really special to see the culture and just 5 years, some people 14, 15 years, of chasing that, and super special, something that'll be in my heart for a long time.
You've always told me, and you've always said in the past, you got to play loose. You can't play tight. You can't, let the pressure get to you. But here is a case where you have a lot of veteran players. This is their last time playing in the Olympics. And the pressure of wanting that gold, medal so bad. A gold medal, obviously, but just medal. And the country's never met a great softball country. Mm-hmm. How did you, as a staff, were able to let them play to their best of abilities and not let the moment get to them? How were you able to process that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that when you get more years under your belt, when you have veterans that have been around a long time, and maybe they're at a younger age, they can go out and not stretch and do things amazing, and at older age they have to really prepare their bodies to be able to do what they want to do. I think Danielle really talking about, Danielle, how do we get the most out of you in games? Like, what does that preparation piece look like? You're a mom now. Like, there's just a lot of other things that you're talking about. But when you put your best foot forward, you gave all you can, you just got to enjoy the moment, whether it happens or doesn't. So the pressure moments were really easy in the sense of accepting the outcome. So I think they really enjoyed those moments because that's what they trained for and worked for. It's different when you don't know if you trained hard enough for it. You don't know what you've done for it. But when you've been in those games, those girls have been in a lot of high level games. And I think of Lauren Bay, Lauren Regula, Jenna Kyra, Sarah G, like they know that they trained and they were ready to just put it out there and completely enjoy the moments. So that's where that looseness really came in.
Oh, that's a pretty talented pitching staff you got to work with there.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Were you as impressed as I was? My takeaway from that Olympics was the incredible pitching talent across the world.
Yeah.
Because people were talking about here in the States, well, where's the offense? And the U.S. is struggling. I'm like, nobody's hitting. as a staff, was that something you were expecting? Were you caught, what was your thoughts of the overall play and the fact that I thought pitching really across the world really dominated and really kind of controlled most of all the offenses for the most part?
Yeah, it's it's such a different game. You only get 15 people on the roster. You have to decide whether you want pitching depth or hitting depth or position depth. You're playing every single day. There's no round robin to get to somewhere. Like every game matters. It's just it's a different game in that sense when you get to the Olympics. And so, yes, there were some big time matchups. When you talk about matchups, there when you get to play. You're trying to put into your mental bank, like we faced Abbott 2 years ago. What was it like? You faced Akiko Ueno one at bat 3 years ago because they've been hiding her. Like, what does that look like? Like, you're just really trying to think about it and who's had the most experience and here's the matchup. And it just really came down like moments within the game. And, defensively, some great plays too to get some pitchers out of it. It wasn't just pitching dominating strikeout. It was actually defensive play and great plays and can the team situationally hit to make this happen? I think about us against Abbott when Sarah G hit the ball in the gap and, they made the play to home plate, like just some really cool moments all, as team. And I think that's what's so important about international getting that level. It's great pitching, great defense, great hitting, like just a really exciting game is going to grow our game worldly. So, there was a lot of that. And, even Mexico, I mean, they had some great games too. So it was just really fun to be a part of.
What does the bronze medal and performance for Canada mean for them moving forward as far as, the country getting behind the national team? Obviously, we're going to have another drought here in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Hopefully not as long as the last time. You were part of the '08 Olympics in Beijing. Didn't come back until 21. It's erotic. You've been now in the last two Olympics, by the way. That's that's a pretty unique deal. Now we got to wait till maybe 28, hopefully in Los Angeles. That's when it comes back. But what does it mean now for Team Canada for, breaking through and getting that medal?
Yeah, well, I think, again, I feel so lucky as we had a former Seminole and our volunteer coach, Kaylee Rafter, who's now the head coach of Canada. And Jen Salling on staff, which is completely incredibly awesome to have two players that have been with the program and have so much pride in Canada. And when you say like Canada hasn't historically been good in softball, I know on the number side of it, they have not, but they have the talent, and it's just it's a matter of developing that talent and figuring it out, and giving it the experience. We're so lucky in the United States. Japan's very lucky. They have a league. They get to play a ton. They get to develop a ton. There's other countries that don't have leagues, so they have to filter in and figure out how to get that experience. And so it's there in Canada. It's just how do we develop it? And so the funding is a big part of it for sure. When the Olympic 4 years comes around, you get a little more funding. That makes sense on bottom line of Olympic organizations and the money they're giving it to it. But I know Jen right now, like Kaylee and Jen, that they're getting after some serious developmental plans, opportunities. The game is just growing so much more. There's a lot of Canadians playing in the States now, and so they're getting out and connecting with them. The year of COVID really taught us how to teach through FaceTime or Zoom. You don't have to be one-on-one. You don't have to be face-to-face anymore. You can actually connect once a week and get after some teaching and developing and culture sharing. So I think they've dove into that as two leaders of the Canadian national team. So I'm excited for the program moving forward.
You mentioned obviously Kaylee Rafter, now the new head coach of Team Canada, and back on your staff. She's worn almost every hat at Florida State. I mean, I remember meeting her when she was broadcasting your games a few years back. What does it mean to have her back and have her now on the staff as a volunteer coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's been incredible for us. We've been so lucky to have a lot of players go on and coach, and kind of gather their own philosophies. It's one thing to stay in the program, and I definitely love our players and I love them to stay here, but at some point they got to go test our philosophies and our beliefs, and they got to grow their own wings and get their own. Now having her back after years at Virginia and Buffalo and with the Canada team, she's bringing such a wealth of knowledge. She's an amazing catching coach. She's really smart to the metric side of the game, which is the technology piece is really taking off in our game right now. And so she's able to break it down in layman's terms for someone like me, who's a little past my prime of understanding new ways, but I'm trying to get into it. So she's been a liaison on that sense for us as really helping me understand those areas and develop that and our staff. So, and I think she's very, excited to be back on her home turf too. And she'll get out back coaching again. I know that, this was just really tough for her to come back from the Olympics. A lot of the players come back from the Olympics in August. And then, you look like Vic Hayward, like flipping around and going coach in San Diego State. Like there's no downtime to debrief the 5 to maybe 15 years that you put into Canada. And then, so I think for Raph, it was just nice to like, okay, let me just low key, just kind of try to get this going with Canada and, have an area of comfort. So it's just been really nice to have her here.
What was this offseason like for you? I mean, you obviously, getting to the national championships is within a game, getting to a game 3, which got pushed to a Thursday due to the weather. And then you got to turn around and you're helping out the Olympics in Japan. I mean, what has it been like for you from that standpoint? I mean, that's a big kind of a heavy load offseason for you there.
Yeah. I think when you're passionate about your sport, it's not a heavy load in that sense. It's just managing it and having good people around you. Travis and Troy were awesome, very supportive. They picked up, all the camps, they picked up all the recruiting, they got after it. We were in pretty good communication all summer long. Again, I'm able to grow as a coach and a person. So sometimes when you stay in your role, you don't get to see the outside world. Sometimes you're just Florida State. So I went as an assistant coach and a pitching coach, and I was under a head coach again. That's a field that I think sometimes we need to check into because you're just so used to making decisions all the time. But what's it like to be a supporter of the decision and just give your influence or your input and, try to help out the best you can, but be a good soldier, when you've always been the captain, so it's just a lot of growth that was really, really good for me. And I'm just thankful for Travis and Troy to allow me to do that, and be able to throw the reins over. And I think when you got good people around you, you can go do some things to grow you as a person and to help, hopefully there's just a little bit to help the game grow too.
Did you get a chance to reflect as a staff about the last year and really the incredible run you had? I don't know if that's been properly explained, what the run you did, starting with the regional, one of the toughest regionals with UCF, a talented team, Auburn, Kennesaw State in your regional. Then you go to LSU, not dramatic, super regional. You get to the World Series. You come out of the losers bracket, beat Alabama. I mean, just when you reflect back on last year and that run, what comes to your mind?
It's funny. We just did that yesterday morning as a coaching staff. We reflected on the season and what are some things that we really thought that we did well. And I think one thing that I guess 2 things that stand out is, one, don't quit before the magic happens. As a coaching staff, as a player, as a team, as an organization, you can get into a lull really easy and people can start to fall off and not stay in it. So with that ability to stay in it is culture. And I think that, when you talk about culture of a program and how important it is, that showed up for us. If we didn't have that culture piece, it would have been easy to like, man, because mid-season, we were just like, who are we? What kind of team are we? And you don't want to look to the past and have this big shadow of like, man, you need to be this team. Like, we are Team 38. What is that? And we were a little more situational hit, a little more gritty, a little more base running, a little more pitcher dominated. Like we have figured out. So it took us a little longer in season to figure out. And then, man, went on a run. So incredibly awesome. Owned who we were. Oklahoma, home run hitting team, know what they are. Florida State knew that they were gritty. Take advantage, be about us, have some fun, lay it out there, right? 2 different mindsets playing for the championship. Just really special, super special moments. Alabama series. There's so many special moments. It was incredible.
When was that moment that it clicked? That you felt like, okay, we figured out who we are? Was it the regional? Was it before that? When was it? Was there a moment where you're like, okay, I think we've kind of figured out who we are, we can make this run?
Yeah, I think super regionals, we got to LSU. I think, the fights, I think Elizabeth Mason's home run, going into Tiger Park and, being told, like, there was no talk about Florida State at that point. It was just, LSU is going to dominate. You're in Tiger Park, deal with their fans, all that kind of stuff, and you're like, okay, like, we're going to go do what we do. And that was the whole thing, just do what you do. But do what we do kind of went to another level. We really saw some competitive moments. Danielle Watson had some big pitching moments in that series. we relied on a lot of different people at that point. You know, Kirsten Landers out of the lineup, Mudge is in there, and then she comes in to get that hit. Like I think the one thing as a coaching staff, we're not afraid to make changes and whenever it needs to happen. So, there was a time in the championship run in 18, Morgan Clayman was playing outfield the whole time. We made a change, and then Elizabeth Mason's in there, and then she had it, So I think as we have learned over time, like it doesn't matter if it's 40 games in, 50 games in, 20, like we will make changes and we will let the team develop how they need to develop. And so we just saw another level of fight and some people step up in big moments and have their moment. And that really started to spark us to make a run.
You lose a great senior class, a number of them that really helped you. And you mentioned that during that run that they were part of that 2018 national title that really raised their game and led this team to that run. Just speak of that senior class and the legacy they left your program, because I think it's a special group to you, especially the way things, that run.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I speak to like Danny Morgan. She's a very quiet player. You don't hear a lot about her or hear from her a ton, but she led that locker room. I mean, anytime we would ask like, what's going on with the team, well, Danny's talking about this, well, Danny's doing that. So I think there was a very quiet leadership. And sometimes you have to trust that, and we had to definitely trust that as we went through. Like, I'm not saying people speak up in moments, but then they are speaking up. They're speaking up in the locker room. They're speaking up in team events. Like, it doesn't have to be around me all the time. And, I know we're going to miss that a little bit. Yet, I do think, as a program that's going to continue to be successful, you leave that legacy. Now someone else steps up. I think Sid Sherrill's been incredible this year. Her voice is definitely like, she's learned a ton from how people have led and then what she's bringing to it. So she's been incredible in those moments that I think Danny has now vacated and given to her. Elizabeth Mason, her voice was big. She had a big voice. She would speak up a lot, very well educated in the game, a smart player. Sometimes be so smart it would lock her up because, she just gets so analytical, but then got to the point of like, just be free and play, And so there's all those lessons that they would be verbal about having trickled down to a Dev Flaherty. I think even Kaylee Mudge, right? Like, you wouldn't look at her and be like, oh, who's this kid? Like, she gets base hit, but boy, does she bring an energy level that's big on the team and produced and stepped up and give us a role that was like, let's follow her. Let's get after her. Because she's just, Charlie consistent every day getting after it. And so, yes, a lot of seniors that left us, but their legacy is now leaked into this group. We've learned from it and you move it forward.
Well, and I would have to imagine, especially for the young returners, going through that experience last year, the ups and downs, but especially the highs of that postseason run. You mentioned a Kaylee Mudge, who certainly became a household name with her performance at the Women's College World Series, a World Series record, 14 hits, a single game record, 5 hits against Alabama. I would have to think a player like her and others that had success in that postseason came to you this fall with a lot of confidence and maybe a different player than maybe they were a year ago. Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure. It's fair. But, even when you start to raise your game, you're still unsure of where you're going. So, it's one thing to lead, but, you can't get so past, like, keep developing you. If you think about anytime you're in college, like every year brings you a different wealth of experience, but you're still growing as a person. I can't think that many like NFL games and Major League Baseball games, like you talk about, they always reflect on the season and they're in their 30s. They get so many opportunities to grow. We're talking 4 years of a very small amateur window. So I think it's, yes, great confident conversations, but still, okay, Mudge, what can we do better? Where can we push? What can we do better? So keep doing you, keep being that vision for our freshmen. Well, let's keep developing you and getting you better. And that may not just be softball skills. That may be leadership, time management, body, taking care of your body. Like there's all areas that we continue to grow and push the players as they move forward with experience and their leadership roles.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I've run into a lot of players who've always told me, man, the light turned on at my senior year. I figured it out. Yeah. But it was in my senior year. Why did it took so long, right? But that's kind of the part of the process, right? It's just, you can't, everybody's kind of different when, and you can't really, force it. It comes at their own pace.
Yeah. And it's so fun to watch. It's so fun as a coach to watch that. We're so lucky in the coaching world to be able to see that.
Let's talk about your staff. Obviously, Catherine Sandercock became a household name last year. 22 wins, All American, 20, dominant led your staff. You got Danielle Watson back. You've got some new faces on the staff as well. Just talk about your staff this year. A lot of depth as usual, but I feel like, again, a lot of growth. I mean, Sandercock grew a lot last year.
Yeah.
Just talk about your staff this year.
Yeah, I mean, very excited about the experience that Danielle got towards the end. Kaylin Arnold was incredible for us, pitched a long innings, had some big pitches for us. Kat has been steady Eddie. She's super competitive. I think the one thing that Kat and Danielle this year are really taking on the role of connecting with the team. They know that a great pitcher is because of a great catcher too, right? Anna Shellnut may not have been the household name, but Anna has caught a ton of games for us here. And she has been very impactful every pitch, leading this team. So now there's those big shoes with Michaela Enfield, Kyla Pressey, and Katie Bright to fill. So 3 catchers. So we can be as good as we want to be in the circle, but if we don't connect that piece, if we don't understand there's going to be growing pains behind the dish, then it's going to be easy to lose that battery and those growing moments. So 60 games to get better, 30 games to figure out where we're at. Like there's a mindset that we have to get to, is connecting that piece. And so those two have been very understanding of that. They've worked their tails off. They're in a really good spot right now. Third pitcher, who's going to get those extra, 50, 60, 70 innings, whatever it is. So we can save some arms for later in the season with Danielle and Kat. I think Emma Wilson got a little experience of the World Series. It was a big stage. That was a big ask for me to have her go in there and perform on a big stage. And but I thought it was incredible, and it'll be incredible for us as we move here in the future. And I think Emma Wilson's in a really good position to get a lot of innings this year for us. Bree Inter's been around. She's pitched for us quite a bit. And then Mac Leonard transferred in. So we've got 3 other people that we're going to figure out. We're going to figure out where they fit in, but definitely leading the charge is Danielle and Kat for us.
You mentioned Mac Leonard from Illinois State, great player, a two-way player.
Mm-hmm.
For a couple questions, do you see her playing two-way for you and helping out offense and pitching? And what does she bring to the table to your team?
Yeah, I think the original talking with her is swinging the bat. Come in and swing the bat, and then let's learn a lot of other positions. We don't want to be a jack of a lot of trades and a master of none. And you can hit, and we might have a little bit different style than where you come from. So let's not overwhelm. Let's not try to squeeze so much into your mind and just lock you up. So we've been playing, the fall was left field, first base, pitch, hit, it was a lot. New spot. I mean, just tip your cap to someone wanting to have a different experience and come down. That's a lot, leaving your home state and then coming back down to Florida in a different conference. So we acknowledge all that. We've had a lot of conversations with her, and I do think she's going to contribute, a lot of spots. She's been working a little bit at first base and just pitching kind of minimal, we'll see where that comes in, but we've got 2 years with her too. And that's the benefit is we don't have to get it all in these 3 weeks. We don't have to get it all in the first month. Like we've got time to grow, and she doesn't have to be the only one producing at the plate. We've got a lot of good weapons. We've got a good dugout. We've got a huge roster. Really excited to be able to go and display that and see what we get. And, again, I always feel like that 15, 20 game mark, we're like, oh, okay, we can start to see it settling in.
You've been one of the coaches that have been, a believer in, if redshirting a freshman, to learn. Yeah. We've had Jessica Burrow said that, like, she didn't like it at the time. She wasn't happy with you, but in the long run, she understood why, and it was the best thing to happen to her.
Yeah.
You've obviously had dealt with COVID, which has gotten a lot of the student athletes a year extra. It's obviously affected the rosters. As you mentioned, bigger rosters. It's obviously affected recruiting.
Yeah.
Has that affected you as far as your philosophy, as far as redshirting players, knowing that they have extra years? How has that affected you and your kind of philosophy?
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a big conversation, because now you're not even talking about getting a master's degree. I mean, is there MBA mixed in there? Like, where are we looking at? Because, kids are coming in with, I look at Kirsten Landers, who's got COVID and she had a redshirt ACL, who's a sophomore who could be in the 7th year if she stays here. Like, that's a long time to be playing. And, at some point, like, is this really what I want to do? Do I want to go on to life? Like, where does this all fit in? So decisions won't be made until, we start playing games in February on where everything's going to come in. Like, we'll start getting after scrimmages this next week. We'll start to see where everybody's at. But you are definitely right. You've got 12 scholarships, you got a roster of 26, like you've recruited kids to come into the program. You got some kids that transferred in because, there's a lot of kids that couldn't do the master's work at the schools they were at. They couldn't get into it. So then you got kids like that trying to transfer to other schools. So it's just, it's been a convoluted years with the recruiting calendars and the COVID kind of combining at the same time. So, I think the one thing is we've always been very honest with our players, and we want to make sure that they have the best opportunity to do what they want to do in their 4 years. So I'm, definitely real with them, and you want to go somewhere else and play, let's find you somewhere else to play. You want to stay here in redshirt, let's do that. You want to, what's good for Florida State, what's good for you. It's not always about me, it's about the whole picture. And so we do have a redshirt in Allie Dubois. She transferred from Boston. Again, big picture, you can go in and play and pitch somewhere, or you can come here, redshirt, we can develop. And then next year when Danielle leaves, we've got someone else with experience to solidify the pitching circle. So that was a conversation. She loved that. She's doing that. And I think that's going to be incredible for us. But again, it's just it's got to be both parties that decide that.
And the honesty you mentioned, that's even more critical now, right? With the transfer portal, because now, if a player's not happy with the role, whatever, they can enter the portal in a moment's notice. And that's what we're seeing now. It's funny. I laugh because I see college football people flipping out because of all the movement. Softball's kind of been accustomed to this now.
Yeah.
But that has to be even more pivotal now, having that communication with the players and being on the same page now, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Because, I think, like for us, we're a developmental program. We've always been that. We're a teaching program. We take pride in that. So that takes time. That's not something you just come in and just go right away. I think some programs that are strictly transactional and want W's right away and have to get W's right away, it's about pulling a 400 hitter into a lineup and making them hit 400, where we're culture based, where, so that takes time. So it's got to be very important that I have that really good conversation with our coaching staff. And then we have that with the players and parents because that takes time. It's a process piece. It's definitely you're part of giving to this culture just as much as we're part of getting you comfortable in this culture. Like it's a two-way street. So honesty is definitely the bottom line for how we go here.
Offensively, last year was a different offense. You've talked about it. It wasn't like the some of the offenses of the past when you had the Jesse Warrens and the Alex Powers and scored a ton of runs and Powerball and you had to find different ways to manufacture runs last year. This year, this fall, what do you see from your offense as possibly their identity, and who are some of the players that you think will lead your offense?
It's really, I still think that's out there for us to find out. I think that, some good conversations with our upperclassmen and Sid Sherrill and Dev and, I think, even Josie Methley, Kaylee Harding, if you talk about like an upperclassman, she has a year of under her belt. She's almost sophomore, junior minded because she's played at that World Series level, So you sit down and have chats with them. And then you have people like Janai and Hallie Facer that tore their ACL, but they were with us for the journey. Like Janai and Hallie were like we were the scout squad, right? So we would scout and do everything because they couldn't play, but how do we get them involved? So they were prepping scouting plans, they were prepping stuff. So now is when they get to implement that. So when that all starts to come together, what does that look like? We learned how to push through failure. We learned how to have team at bats. We learned how to be scrappy. Can we keep that in our hip pocket and add in doubles and home runs? Can those things be a part of it? We're going to face some really good pitching. We've got some really good competition coming up for us down at St. Pete, and we're going to get on the road, play Alabama. We're going to really challenge ourselves early. So then, again, we know where we're at, what we need to do, and so we're pretty excited for that.
You got some new faces too on the offense. You added pieces, Bethany King from USF as a transfer, but also some freshmen that really from a highly touted class that was very highly ranked, depending where people want to look for their rankings. It's right up there. Talk about the new faces that will contribute to your offense.
Yeah, I think BK, as people have seen her play, but I mean, there's something to be, a catcher that can catch and receive and just so smooth you don't notice them. BK is one of those people at first base. I mean, she's just so smooth at first base, natural left-handed first baseman there. And it's really nice to see. And again, getting her MBA, it's just the maturity, from there. So it's been fun. So yeah, been swinging it, been getting after it. Her, I go back to Janai Kerr, coming off the ACL, Hallie Wakefacer coming off the ACL. Those are, big at bats. Janai's just so talented. But talent and mental mindset, you're going to get challenged early on. You could be really good. You're leveling up when you get to college. Like, how do we handle the mental piece and the expectation piece? I think a lot of kids, when they get injured, they come back and they want the old Janai or the old Hallie, like, you are who you are. How can we get past that, and how can we move forward? So we've had a lot of talks of them too. Michaela Enfield, catcher for us. I mean, she's got lots of power, lots of pop. We'll see how that plays. There's just so many faces and so many opportunities and so many things that we can do with this team. We did not have depth last season at all. Our infield played pretty much every inning possible together. This year we have huge depth. We got Hartley and Blankenship, Amaya Ross, just so many freshmen that have been pushing our team on the field right now and pushing the envelope in the offensive side. So, in 3 weeks, I think the lineup that gets put up will be way different in 15 games and 20 games and 30 games, and that's going to be a benefit to us.
You mentioned Brooke Blankenship. She's a touted player that really went, very highly touted, very successful. Talk about what she brings to your program there, and not just this year, but obviously long term.
Yeah, I think Brookie's been just really good being a sponge. There's, again, I go back to teaching mindset, and when you become a student of the game, you can bring a lot of softball skill sets. When you start to learn the intricacies, when you start to learn positioning, when you start to learn your players, it just takes you to another level. And that locked her up in the beginning in the fall. Most freshmen, it does. Then she went home, over Thanksgiving, and just kind of let the fuzz settle a little bit. And her work ethic and her mindset's definitely just taking her to another level for sure.
Let's talk. Obviously, you played in the World Series. That midnight game against Oklahoma State is going to be a turning point now. It's going to turn out to be a pretty significant game in the history of the sport because it caused change. Mm-hmm. Your reaction now, the Women's College World Series schedule expanded. Are you satisfied? You react to the changes they made? And obviously being in the middle of it, that was you spoke out right away after it. You had a lot of support, and now it's happened. Your reaction?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely satisfied, but not satisfied to keep pushing to make it better. The World Series needs to get better, and support for the athletes and support for the growth of the game. But I also know that takes time too. And, it's funny about that game against Oklahoma State, and Kenny and I were talking, I mean, we have a right to not play this game. At some point kids want to play. I think softball is a blue collar mindset anyway. And I think we like it that way. We earn everything we get. And I think it's been a lot of fun. And I think you see that displayed on the field. So, it becomes a storyline. But I do remember in 2014, 2016, I think Kentucky played a game and they didn't get done until midnight, 1 a.m. And they were on a flight home by the NCAA at 6 a.m. There was a game, Michigan. We played them, I think it was 2014, yep. 2016. I can't remember. They didn't get done till 1 a.m. with their food, and they're back on the field playing us at 10, and nobody even cared. So we could say that the Oklahoma State, Florida State game was the turning point. This has been a talk for a long time. It just takes that long to get through all the people that got to make decisions. So yes, it's awesome for our game, but we still need to keep looking at it and growing, our game. I know when you watch it on TV, it has grown so much, but you even talk about just TV production, the media day, like all those things that go on behind the scenes that just get pushed. It's tough. It's tough to go in there as a coach that wants to scout, wants to get after things. You're getting home late, you're doing your media train, and then you're up till 2, 3, scouting, and you think you'd have it all ready to go, but your regionals, super regionals, you're doing travel plans, you're getting there, you got 8 more teams, things have changed. It is so much fun, but it is so much, you're exhausted at the end of it. And so I think the extra days added in are going to be nice, but we still need to look at the length of it.
Well, and you've been to Oklahoma a lot. I've been to Oklahoma a few times. The weather changes. It rains. How do you, yeah. I think that was the thing that surprised me. It was like, oh wait, there's weather delays. What do we do? And you mentioned that this has been a talking point for a while, but it felt like this time, I mean, we had record numbers ratings wise. People were watching on social media. I mean, your game, as late as it started, it still outdrew a lot of the primetime games of the men's World Series, which speaks to the loyalty of the softball fan. But social media exploded about this. This became a hot topic, and it shows now that there's so much growth in the game and the popularity has grown that all of a sudden that's the perfect timing to bring it up, because that's when the most eyeballs, maybe more eyeballs than ever before.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that we rallied around together, like all the World Series coaches all together. We had a text chain going, and I think Mike Candrea's name held a lot of weight. Patty started speaking up. I know Carol Hutchins reached out to us, and she had an interview on Good Day, Good Morning America. Like there was a lot of things going on, and the ability for people that just, what I think it happens in the past is the World Series coaches, the 8 or maybe 6, because the first 2 that are out are kind of gone, and the 6 that are dealing with things. When you go back to your convention or your administrators and you try to share, you're only 6 voices of 300, so it's like a lot of people don't experience that, so they don't know what you're talking about. The more we're on TV, the more we're in social media, the more people are starting to see that, which happened with women's basketball too. Like you're posting stuff and you're seeing stuff and now you're living it. So I'm sitting in my living room and I'm living it. Now I have a voice, so maybe 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing. Social media wasn't able to get it out there to really see what people are experiencing and know what they spoke to and why the change needs to happen. So, again, love that we're on TV, love that we get to play the game, love the sport that happens there. Want to keep pushing to make it just a little bit better. We don't need the Taj Mahal. We just need to keep pushing to get a little bit better. And what is that?
Well, I felt like the schedule's always been a little bit archaic. I mean, the games don't go under 2 hours anymore like it used to 20 years ago. You got to evolve with the way the game has gone from that standpoint. The other big thing, obviously, instant replay will be involved in postseason and review. Will it be in the ACC is my first question, and also your thoughts now on review coming, instant replay coming to softball.
Yeah, certain schools are doing it. I think Vatech's in on it. I think we're deciding whether we're in on replay. Again, that becomes a manpower thing. I mean, you look at today, just getting workers, like there's a lot of other underlying things that support for camera workers, replay, facilities people, and all that kind of stuff. So, I have never been a fan of instant replay. I just like the game to be played the way it is. I don't like stoppage of play. Even right now, when you go to postseason and you have that 2.5, 3 minutes for commercials, it is like forever, and it's like, and it's awesome, right? You're on TV and it's awesome. But like now all of a sudden you're like, your pitcher's kind of sitting down, people are kind of hanging out, then you go play again. And now all of a sudden, you got a timeout, you're going to go check a play. It lengthens the game. So what has been so good about our game is just how fast paced it is and how much fun, and you're in and out in 2.5 hours. And, so I just don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose what makes us special. And, if someone were to show me over time that, the replay actually makes the difference, but I think sometimes umpires are probably right majority of the times, it solidifies, their calls. So I don't know. I'll go whichever way the way people want to go, but I really like the fast pace. The call's the call. Half the time I may be heated, I'm over it, we're on to the next one. Like we'll have many opportunities in a game, so let's just execute pitches and be after pitches. And that's just maybe I'm old school thinking on that.
No, I think your concerns are valid. I mean, I've seen it in the NBA where I cover, where sometimes they'll review everything in the fourth quarter and it takes forever. There was a playoff game last year that it took like 10, 20 minutes to like review a play, and it throws off the rhythm, and that's not good for television either. On the other hand, I've seen football where they've now review things faster than ever. Where they as soon as the play's done, they review it and they get it done within 30 seconds. So I think there's a way to do it where it does not disrupt the flow of the game. It's just figuring that out, and I think time will tell. Couple last things. What's it like to say that you're going to be the last coach that ever coached against Mike Candrea?
Wow. I think during the World Series when they were asking us questions on the media days, and actually when you say that, they did ask me a lot of questions, and an incredible man that's done a lot for our game. I was able to be at Stanford in the Pac and experience the dynasty times. Not that they're at the World Series and they're good, but there was just no beating Arizona in recruiting. There was no beating them on the field. There was, the times that we were into the 7th inning, and sometimes at Stanford you're in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning, and you're like tied, and you're like, man, like we're right against David and Goliath right now. Like we're there, and then when you start like maybe winning some games, like you set the standard and the tone for where you wanted to get to and where you wanted to be. So and then always did it with class. I think that's the biggest thing I've always learned. He was a little fiery early in his years. Sometimes he'd run down there and argue some calls, but there was never disrespect ever. And that's the one thing that I think is so important. And nowadays, like continue to play the game with respect your opponents, respect after the game's all done. It's the honor to play the game. And he always brought that. So just really, really, really appreciated that lesson that he gave us.
That was such a surreal game. It was an exciting game. You win it. Dramatic fashion. you know, you're excited, you're celebrating, and I was watching, but then like a minute or two after the game was over and you won, everybody was almost like, oh, wait a minute. Is this it? like I
Yeah.
could show that like in the air, and the broadcast obviously was following him and everything. I mean, obviously you all blocked that stuff out, but was there even a part of you like when you kind of waved to him or, you know, after the game? Like, did you ever think like, wait a minute, that might have been like the last time I see him in the on the field there? Like that's
Yeah.
a historic moment that you were a part of.
Yeah. So there were so many COVID protocols, no shaking of hands, none of this. And honestly, they came here for a 3-game series during the season.
That's
So I was
right.
able to chat with him a little bit then. And, it wasn't out there that he was retiring, but kind of heard, there's rumors of this going on. And so there's people putting together videos and stuff like that for him. So, but you know what? I think what's fortunate about softball is it's not being there for someone's historic last moment. Like, he'll always be there. Like, even to this day, I can reach out to Mike if I wanted to. Like, I mean, it's like, tip your cap. Like, it was awesome. He enjoyed the game. He probably took a quick breath after, like, holy schmoly, like that was my last one. But he went out on, some really amazing terms. He got, Arizona back to the World Series. I mean, you couldn't beat Arizona back in the day. And then there was a little bit the SEC growing. Talent was leaving the West Coast. It was coming out here. Arizona's still good, but then he gets them back to the World Series. It's just really cool lessons that he gave us all. And I tried to wave, but I still know deep in his heart, he knows how much he's given to this game and how much he means to all of us. And then, I know that, those lessons that he gave me and all of us, we continue to give to the game. So the next generation of coaches and players can keep making this game great.
The ACC, people were focusing on, man, Florida State not in the ACC championship game
Yeah.
or this or that. And, we talked about it on the podcast. My co-host Victor even mentioned it. It really speaks more about the ACC strength, really more than what's wrong with Florida State. I think that narrative needs to start going more in the direction of the league. I mean, Clemson was loaded. You saw with Valerie Cagle,
Mhm.
Duke winning the ACC tournament, get a national team, Virginia Tech, a strong Notre Dame. I mean, this league is as strong as it's ever. I mean, you guys gotta be careful what you wish for. You kind of help build this monster by your program there, coach, right? I mean, I know the standards are super high, but this league, it's tough every week and maybe helped you make that run in the postseason.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've been talking for a while now. I think in 2018 when we made the run, we were able to pull from a lot of really good pitchers in our conference. Maybe the conference didn't have the complete package, but we were battling. Our hitters were battling against some really good pitchers in our conference, and we were still maybe winning the games, winning the conference, winning the championships, but it was definitely being battle tested. Then all of a sudden, now they get pitching, now they get some hitting, now all of a sudden we get some exposure. We're getting a lot better. And I think for the ACC in general, like we were the first ones to put the ACC flag there in Oklahoma City. It's been planted. Now there's a whole group of athletes that are like, man, we play them every weekend. We're toe to toe, just like us at Stanford against Arizona. Like we're against you every weekend and we can play. Now you gain belief. And you're talking last year was a 4-game series. Like we were playing 4-game series. So, you get a really chance to like every single day of the weekend like, well, I got beat yesterday, but let me see what I can do today. So it just builds you and makes you stronger in that sense. And so, yes, it's funny, even, playing Alabama after the game, everyone's like, well, what was wrong with Montana Fouts? And I'm like, let's flip it and say what was right about Florida State.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
why do we always have to go to someone failing versus someone succeeding? You saw what Vatek did at UCLA. I mean, they can swing it, they can battle, they're fierce. Duke is building a really good program. They're owning what they do and how they do it. I think that, Notre Dame every year is knocking on doors, so it's awesome that not just the ACC is getting better, but coast to coast we're getting better, north to south we're getting better, and we're battling for that. So yes, very proud of that, but also know now that we used to have to play a really tough February. We're getting battled all the way through now, and it's really really cool to see the growth.
Last question. What's going to be the keys for this team to accomplish your internal goals this year? And, kind of, have another successful year. You've been to Florida State's one of the, by the way, 9 programs since 2000 to be in the NCAA tournament every year. Been to 8 straight supers, obviously the Women's College World Series, all the high expect. What's the keys for this particular team to have its accomplish their internal goals?
I'm going to go back to our youth. We have a lot of young players, young experience, and young players that are going to have a lot of touches. So if you look at a catcher, they're touching the ball 100, 150 times a game, right? There's youth with a lot of touches. It's one thing to put youth in right field that maybe touches the ball twice, right? So how do we get an Emma Wilson to another level? How do we get some catchers to another level? So so our growth and our abilities of coaching staff to push and love at the same time our youth is going to be a big pendulum swing for us. And so I think I'm excited to see that. I think the girls are prepared very well. Now the next level of preparation and testing is the game part. So that's what I'm excited to see. If we have pretty good growth, and get good fight within it, and the leadership pushes us through, we can make a run. We're pretty strong. If that growth, kind of takes a little while, you just never know when it's going to show up. Just like last year, we just got to stay the course and stay in it.
Well, Coach, we look forward to seeing your team on the field. Going to see them a lot early on. Of course, you'll be a part of the ESPN tournament in Clearwater, and of course, ACC plays. So, appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy time as you get set for the season, but I always enjoy catching up with you on our yearly tradition, and even when I talk to you during the season. Good luck, and I'll talk to you during the year.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much.